Hello everyone, Mrs. Edstrom here. Today we are working with equations and we are solving equations with rational coefficients. So go ahead and title your notes. Like always, take a minute, make sure that your notes are set up and are ready to go. Alrighty then, so solving equations with rational coefficients. If you do not know what that means, that is a super fancy way of saying we are looking at equations that look like this. They have fractions and decimals. So we're gonna look at decimals in a minute, but we're gonna start off with fractions. Woo! Everybody loves fractions, right? No. No, nobody really likes fractions, let's face it. Not fun. This looks terrible. Lots of things. If I were to solve this like normal, I would be looking at adding 2/3 over here and then trying to multiply by 3, which you can definitely do. But there is a way that we can make our equations so much better anytime that there are fractions in it. So I'm going to give you a few steps. When we have fractions in equations, so equations with fractions. Step 1. You ready? Step 1 of what to do when you have an equation with a fraction that you're trying to solve. Get rid of it. 100%. Just get rid of it. Get those fractions out of there. We can do that. We can get rid of fractions. The way we get rid of fractions, remember, fractions are just division. So the way we undo or get rid of the division is by multiplying by the denominator. By multiplying by the denominator. Oh, gotta fit it in. Oh, barely got that R in there. Feels so good when that happens. So that means, gotta get my colors here. That means that we're multiplying by our denominator. That does not mean that I am just multiplying by 3 right here, like normal, the y divided by 3. It means that I am multiplying the entire side, even if there weren't fractions in all of them. I'm multiplying the entire side by 3. That means y divided by 3 is being multiplied by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so those would cancel out and leave me with just the y. I still have my minus in the middle here. My 3, again, divided by 3 is 1. It cancels out. That means I have 2 over 1, or just 2 left over. And then with equations, notice I have a lot of this pinkish purple color over here. Do I have any on this side? No, I don't yet. I have to make sure that whatever I multiply by over here, I also multiply on this side. So I still have to multiply that 4 times the 3 to get 12. Now it's just a normal equation and I can solve it the same way we've been solving things. Line down the middle. In this case, I have no coefficient, it's just 1. I do have a constant, my minus 2, that I am going to undo by adding 2 to both sides. Again, remember, we have to keep it balanced by adding on both sides. Those 2's are gone. I'm left with y, and I have my answer, 14. Just like we've been solving. Let's take a look at another one. So sometimes we're going to see problems like this. Our next problem is going to look like this. 2/3 x plus 1/2 is going to equal 5/3. Now that is a lot of fractions. That looks so terrible. Nobody's going to want to solve that one. But remember, what can we do with fractions? Get rid of them. We're just going to get rid of them by multiplying by the denominator. Now what do you notice about my denominators this time? Yeah, the denominators here have different numbers. So there's 2 different ways that I can solve this. The first way is that when I go to multiply this whole side, I can multiply by our common denominator, which means it's going to get rid of both of them. So 3 and 2, the common denominator between that is going to be 6. So I could multiply this side by 6. So 6 times 2/3, the 6 and the 3 are going to cancel out here. It's going to leave me with a 2 on top. So for example, I can cross that one out, and this one's going to leave me with a 2 because 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 2 times 2 gives me 4x. I still have to multiply this, so I can kind of cross out this 2. That's just a little bit of work there. So the 6 times 1/2 is going to leave me with 3. It gets rid of our denominator, but it leaves me with a 3 in the numerator. And then what do I need to do now? I've multiplied this side by 6. What else do I need to do? Yeah, I've got to multiply this other side by 6 as well. I can write it as 6/1 if I want. That 3 is going to be gone. This 6 becomes a 2. 5 times 2 is 10. That leaves me with an equation that I can solve. Real quick though, I want to show you another way that you could solve this problem. So let me rewrite it over here off to the side. Some of you guys struggle with finding those common denominators. And another way that you could solve this problem is simply to pick a denominator and multiply. I always start with my largest denominator, so that means I could multiply both sides by 3. All right, that gets rid of this one, leaves me with 2x. My 3 times 1/2, I can't reduce anything in the denominator there. I just have plus 3/2. And my 3's over here cancel out, and I am left with the 5. So I got rid of one fraction by doing that. I still have a second fraction that I would need to get rid of by multiplying by its denominator, so multiplying by 2. So 2 times 2x would give me 4x. The 2's here are going to cancel out because 2 divided by 2 is 1. I have my plus 3. And on the other side, I have 5 times 2 for 10. So notice we get to the same spot no matter what. This is just another way that you can look at that. You can just multiply by individual denominators until there are no more. Or you can find the common denominator. Either way, we get to the point here where we simply solve. We use our inverse operation, addition, we change to subtraction. And multiplication, we undo with division. Now notice 7 is not divisible by 4. Many of you get to this point usually and you say, oh, I did something wrong. You have to relax. You can go back, double check your work to make sure you did everything right. But a lot of times in this case, we are going to end up with a fraction for an answer. And you can leave it as a fraction. Reduce it down to the smallest fraction, but we can just leave our answers as fractions. That's what's great about this. We got one more thing to talk about. Sometimes we don't have fractions in our problems. We have decimals. So sometimes our equations are going to look like this. 0.2x. What do I have there? Minus 0.3 is equal to 2.5. We've got really fun decimals, and you can always do the work with decimals. We can add 0.3 to both sides. We can divide by 0.2. But again, most of us just really don't like to do that. So just like with our fractions, when we have equations with decimals, what do you think we do? Well, step 1 is to get rid of them. Excuse me there, get rid of them. Again, we're going to get rid of it. This time, though, we don't have denominators to multiply by. We want to make these decimals. We don't want them to be decimals. We want them to be whole numbers. And the way that we can move a number, a digit, into the next place value is by multiplying by 10. Remember, so 3 times 10 moves that 3 into the 30 spot, right? That 10 spot. So we're going to multiply by 10. Sometimes you will need to multiply by 100 if we have 2 spaces. Whatever decimal place value you are at, that's what you're multiplying by. So these are all in the tenths. So I am going to start off by multiplying by 10. And I am multiplying both sides, the whole equation. Everything in this equation is getting multiplied all the time with fractions and with decimals. So 10 times 0.2 leaves me with a 2x. We have a minus. 10 times 0.3 gives me a 3. And 10 times 2.5 gives me 25. Now I have a much prettier equation. All I have are whole numbers, and I can solve using inverse operations. So go ahead and solve this one. I'll walk through it real quick. We add our 3 on both sides to get 2x equal to 28. Our multiplication here we undo with division. Remember, fractions are division. And so we can simply undo them with division. So when we have decimals, step 1, get rid of them. Multiply by 10 or 100. Put a fun box around that so that you can find it in your notes. Find a marker, find a coloring crayon, something to put a fun box around that. And with fractions, we also want to get rid of them. Put another fun box around this one to find that one as well. Multiply by the denominator or by both of the denominators if there's more than one.